My name is Charlie Cotrell. I'm a native San Antonian. In fact, was born close to where we're standing here. And for the early part of my life, in the post-World War II period, 1946 through 53 or so, lived here on East Carolina Street, and then also on Peach Street, which of course no longer exists. We're on Carolina, and we're looking at the expressway, 37-281, and Peach Street basically was where the expressway is now, and it ran a north-south direction. It was several blocks long and had a lot of families, I would say working class families, blue-collar families. At least my uncle who lived there was blue-collar, and teachers, and had a very strong neighborhood, a lot of kids, German, Polish, some Mexican, Czech, and I suppose that's the makeup of the street. Yeah. But it was a very distinct neighborhood that had its own kind of character. Yeah. Well, I remember playing in the street. The children could you could play until dark. Remember, this is a time before Rachel Carson came along and challenged DDT. So in the summers they would spray. We thought that was really neat. And we'd play until dark, all kind of games on people's lawns. In the summer, the porches had been made out of really smooth concrete or cement, and they were, so we would, our thrill when we didn't go to the Roosevelt swimming pool close by, was to wet those down and slide off of them and break bones and probably do bodily harm to ourselves. And it was really had an integrity to the neighborhood, an identity. Probably more Catholic families, at least a number of the children went to St. Cecilia's. Probably some of them went to Robert B. Greene Elementary next to St. Cecilia's on Presa, but most of them were at St. Cecilia's. I left here when I was about 10 years old, maybe 11, and we didn't return. My aunt unfortunately contracted illnesses and she passed away. So I really don't know when that was built. I think it was much later, but I want to suggest that while people who are in the highway business think that's really important, it not only wiped out Peach Street, it actually severed this portion of the near Southside at that time from what was the more thriving Southside, Hackberry. We could walk to a boys' club from Peach Street. There was a boys' club there. We went to the the Highland Theater on Hackberry on Saturdays. Well, this was all walking, you know, for 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old children, and all of this was the near South Side. There weren't pecan valleys and Toyota plants and so on. All of that was just brush. Yeah, I still come back to this neighborhood, and it is very much like someone who's lost a limb. You have all of these familiar memories and places and locations, and then you look and they're gone. They're not there. You know, as I stand here talking with you, I can imagine Peach Street right here, but of course there is no Peach Street here. So there's I suppose a shock. It's the shock that occurs when you know a place really well, and I knew this place really well. We walked everywhere, kind of a testament to the safety of the neighborhood. I was baptized in the then Presbyterian Church at the end of the Carolina. I walked on Sundays there. We walked to school, we walked to the Highland Theater, we walked to the Boys Club, and so on. So there's a real shock, and so you really, what happens is you struggle to keep in place all of those visual memories of what the house looked like, what those porches were like when they were wet, what we did in the evenings, what the Solis family's apartment looked like, the graduation party for my older cousin. You try and keep all of that together. It's as I say, it's much like the experience of someone who loses a part of their memory and they know it's there, but it's really not there. Well, I don't know the planning on what is now Interstate 37 or 281, but I do know that a number of the earlier interstates were essentially run through areas that were accessible. For example, IH-10 on the west side essentially separated the west side of San Antonio, the some 30 some odd contiguous census tracts, from downtown area. It's quite clear. It's like in fact, where UTSA is today downtown and so on, there'd be parking under all of that, but that was pretty common. Francis Fox Piven and others have looked at the geography of locational facilities, and so these kinds of decisions would be made with little regard for what they were cutting up. You would hope that there would be a lot more thought given to not only preservation but displacement of people. I don't know the history of the displacement on Peach Street, but I do know the history of displacement of other peoples up through the current time, or today in 2018, and displacement and location is a real issue. You know, there are not many studies that try and find out where people went, and what happened to them, or what their situation was. Those kinds of, well, I think it's interesting that the word development, it's kind of been appropriated to mean positive things in progress, and I think that certainly there's a case can be made for some progress, but not all development is progress. And so when you think about it in terms of dissolving the character and the integrity of neighborhoods and so on, it becomes something very different, and it's very difficult to think of it in very positive, glowing terms in those situations.